My name is Davin Sturdivant, and these AIM Learn Fast videos are for kart racers who want to get better at understanding data acquisition. So I race competition karts, and I also write for a site known as Kart Pulse, which is a website designed to gather up information about the sport of karting to make it easier for people to understand how the sport works. I was fortunate enough to be connected with Roger Cadell, who's the National Training Manager of AIM Sports LLC. Roger's been racing for almost 40 years, and so he's really good at being able to translate data concepts into something that most racers can understand. When we got together, we decided that we were going to make some videos about Race Studio and try to make data a little bit more fun and try to make it easier to understand. Some of these videos are going to cover things like how does Race Studio work and how do the menus work, and some of them will be more about data analysis and what are you looking at in your data. And hopefully we'll get to some of the funnier pieces of data, silly things that happen when you spend and things so that you understand. So I'm going to turn it over to Roger and take it from there.
Okay, so this is Race Studio 2 as you open it after you've downloaded your data from your Micron 5, your Micron 4, or any of the automotive products. This is the test database. When Race Studio 2 opens, by default it opens with your last test that you just downloaded at the top of the list, the top of the list based on date and time. Over here on the left hand side in the main part of the test database tab, you can open your tests in a number of different ways. We're gonna do a video later on a lot of the different information here on the selection criteria and the test properties. But for this one, we're just gonna open up a test. So I'm gonna highlight this test here, and it's called the AIM Sports Kart Data. We're going to open up this particular test, and you can do it like anything in software, certainly in the AIM Race Studio software. You can open it up in 2 or 3 different ways. You can just simply double click on that particular test. You can right click and you'll get a sub menu that comes up, and it's open test and a number of other things, but we could click open test there. Or you could come down to the lower left hand corner and click on the open test button, which is how we're going to do it this time. So simply, as soon as you open up the test, it opens it up, and the window sizes might be a little bit funky. You can certainly just come over and click on your normal Windows controls and maximize the analysis graph to make it fit the main window. So what AIM does when you first open up the window, when you first open up a test, it opens up it in the state that you last left it. And in this case, the last time I was in Race Studio, I had a measures graph open.
Okay,
so
yeah, that's not always like the easiest thing, right? Because like I know I sometimes open it and I've clicked so many buttons that the windows are just everywhere. So that's good to know.
That is absolutely true. I go walk up to some users and they may have 8 graphs, 8 different functions open up across the bottom, and we try to narrow that down a bit. Mm-hmm. So, but it is actually a very powerful feature where whenever you've closed it down, that's where it opens it up, because it's probably where you want it to be. So it's a pretty good feature. So the other thing that AIM does when it opens up the session is it opens up to your best lap. And so your best lap is now open, and whatever channels you had opened when you closed it are there. And in this case, we're looking at the speed trace and an RPM trace on some Micron 5 data, karting data. So the graphical user interface, the pieces that you work on in this main window is going to be the focus of this quick video. And there's really 5 pieces that we're looking at. And I want to go over the 5 of them in fairly brief, but with some detail, and give you an idea of the main parts of the screen. The main one is the main window, and it's where the squiggly lines show up. It's where any other function that you happen to open will show up. It is the main part of the main window. In this case, we've got the measures graph, also known as the squiggly lines, right? So I can have just the GPS speed or the RPM, or over on our next piece, which is the second most important one, which is what we call the measures and laps toolbar. It's this bar that's over here on the left edge. By default, you can actually move that around on your screen. I'm going to grab the top and I'm going to undock it. We can take that thing and we can dock it over to the other side. We can dock it. You can move that around wherever you wish. I tend to just leave that over here in the standard position on the left side. It works for me, and it works for most everybody else. That window, though, that measures and laps toolbar has another feature that we do a lot in Race Studio 2, which is multiple tabs. In this case, I've got the measures tab selected. And that's where you see the GPS speed, the RPM, all of your channels. Wherever this cursor crosses the line, you see all the channel values. But there's also another tab or two up there. This one is called laps. It simply, by clicking on it, you end up with more information. And the lap times as you turn them. It allows you to select laps. The lap that is selected is red in this case, and so you can select your laps there. I'm going to show you a kind of a shortcut of doing that here in a little bit. The third tab that's underneath this, and we'll talk more in detail about this later on in other videos as well, but is the user profile tab. The user profile tab is a way that you can save views. If I wanted to always open up my software or get back to a speed trace and an RPM, I can save that view as a user profile simply by clicking on this little create new user profile button. And we'll talk more about that in another video in the future. But the measures and laps toolbar was the next one I wanted to chat about. Most of the time it's going to be in that measures tab, and it's the place where you either turn on or off channels. Let's turn off the RPM. We don't want to have it in the main window anymore. You simply click right on the channel name. RPM, click it off. You notice in the main window it's not there anymore. If we want to see the lateral acceleration, click on it, and now it's in place. You can turn. That's how you simply turn channels off and on in the main window. If you want to change the color in the measures and lap toolbar, simply click on the little color bar, and you get a normal Windows palette, and you can change the color as well. That's the measures and laps toolbar, and with the 3 different functions that we use most of the time.
So I think one of the things that, tripped me up when I first got started using Ray Studio is to remember that everything is tabbed based and that you have, several different tabs that you have to keep kind of organized at first when you're learning. So, you have the reporting tab, so like where it says AIM reports, where it says test database, lap manager, and measures graph, right? Like what window is open. And then you have like your session tab for what session is open. And then, if I'm comparing sessions, and I don't know about other people, but I know that was a little confusing when I started because I was so excited to click around on everything that I didn't realize that I was in the wrong session or I was on the wrong report or whatnot. And then I would get frustrated because I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be looking at. I'm supposed to be smart. What the crap, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Well, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And you're not the only one. As I travel around and talk with a lot of people, they miss the tabs. They're there and they're fairly prominent, but they're looking at all the other icons and everything else. The tab based is one of the things we talk about a lot because it's powerful. You see here that we're only talking about three tabs here, 3 tabs across the bottom, and 1 in the main window.
Right.
If you open up multiple tests, multiple functions, multiple laps, there becomes more and more tabs, even more. So it is important to understand that there are tabs there, and that you just simply click on those to get to the important information.
And I know we'll cover this later, but I know like when you have multiple laps open, when you're comparing sessions together, that test compare tab isn't naturally sometimes the first session you're in. And so therefore that can, I know, be a little confusing for people. It's like to just take a minute to just like take a deep breath and just read the tab.
Yep.
And,
or just click on them too, and you can open up different things. So we can always just bring back a lap manager tab, the test database tab, or the measures graph. So just click on them. You can't hurt anything. You're not going to ruin your data. Just click around a little bit and get back to where home base is.
Totally.
Okay, that's the measures and laps toolbar. The next one that I like to talk about is the test laps bar across the bottom. This is a bar that about half the people I work with just turn it off. And I understand that it, screen space, especially on our laptops when we're out at the racetrack, screen space is important, and you can get rid of that tab fairly quickly. But there is some importance to it. What it is, it typically by default goes across the bottom. It is showing every lap that you have active across the bottom, broken by the little lines across the. To signify the start-finish line, the little gray line there. And then if you, the lap that is in the main window is the lap that has the box around it. In this case, the blue box. And so it's quickly showing you what lap is active in your main window. If you hover over it, you'll see there for a little bit, it'll show lap 12 at a 51.242 lap time. So you can easily go and look at your other laps and just hover over them for a second, and it actually gives you your lap times as well. Another feature that some folks don't know is there. So that's a powerful tool on that particular bar. And let's say we're looking at lap 12 now because it was the fastest lap. And if we want to look at lap 11 instead of lap 12, you can simply just take your mouse, come down, and you see it turns into a little hand when you hover over the lap. If you push and hold your left mouse button, it grabs it, turns into a fist, and you just drag to the left, and you can grab another lap, or your active lap is a different lap. If I want to grab lap number 14, I just grab that lap just like that, push and hold my left mouse button, and drag it over to lap 14 and drop it. Let go of the left mouse button. We're now looking at lap 14 in the main window. That alone to me is reason enough to leave that bar open. If I didn't do it that way, I'd have to come back up to the laps tab, select lap 12, and then turn off lap 14, and now lap 12 is the active lap.
Yeah,
So,
and that's a quick little trick that works out nice because, like we said before, with all the tabs, sometimes you get click happy and you get almost too excited and want to click everything, and then once you start checking all the boxes, then all of a sudden it becomes harder. So yeah.
Exactly, and that little shortcut across the bottom is very handy to me. Let's say you want to add a second lap. It's as simple as just coming and hovering over the top of lap 14, and then double clicking. We now have a second lap added to the screen that quickly, so you don't have to go up to the tab, laps tab, go down there, select a lap, and turn it on. You can do it all with just this bar across the bottom.
Sure.
So a very powerful tool to me.
So can we segue for just a quick second? I don't want to dive too deep into like the world of analysis, but when you had two laps open, I thought maybe it would be a good minute to kind of talk about, the importance of kind of having the right data on the screen rather than too much on the screen, right? So it's like you have here, we have two channels open and we have a compare across, and that's really helpful. But maybe to get started, I may just want to compare just speed of two laps or just RPM of two laps, not, both channels at once.
Exactly. I'm a huge fan of starting off with what I call the money channels.
Yeah.
And the money channels to me are speed and lap times. So in this case, we've got lateral G's and we've got speed. I personally would typically come up and turn off the lateral G's, and then we look at those two traces, and we can change the color fairly quickly to make one of those a little bit of a better color to compare against. So we've got a green and a red speed trace. I would just simply look at those two speed traces and find out where I was faster or slower. In this particular case right here, the red lap was quite a bit faster.
Right.
And we would try to, then why? Your basic analysis question that you should be always trying to answer is why.
Right.
And in order to figure out why on that particular area, then we start to bring up the channel that makes some sense to understand. We'll dig deeper into analysis later, but I agree with you, Devin. It's important not to have too much on the screen because it can get a little bit confusing at times.
Right. No, totally. I just know for me, when I pull up some stuff, I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible so I can just look at the big chunks. And so if I can just look at one channel at a time and find where there's a big chunk, then at least I know I should maybe put my attention there. I don't maybe know what to do with it yet, but at least I know, oh, that's a big difference from other things I've seen today, so I should look at that. So.
What did I do right in that corner? So we've got two laps up there, and I'm going to turn one of those back off and just stay with the dark blue one here on lap 14 for now. So the other interesting thing about those two bars on the side, I mentioned a minute ago that they're window space, screen space is an important thing. There's a couple of little tips and tricks that for these main 5 things we're going to talk about, 2 of them especially. If this toolbar, the measures and laps toolbar over here on the left, is taking up some screen space you don't want to, we can quickly just turn it off. And that is done with a keyboard shortcut of just tapping the space bar. So I can turn it on, and I can turn it back off, and I can turn it back on simply by clicking on the space bar. So that gets that one out of the way and buys us a little bit more room. And the one across the bottom, the test laps toolbar, if you just hold the control key down and hit the space bar, you buy yourself even more space, because these measures graph lines, and when we look at 2 laps on top of each other, we really are looking at the shape and the climb rate of the acceleration or the deceleration rate, and we want to make sure we can compare them really well. So getting a little bit better screen size and using your laptop monitor to be able to see the stuff is kind of important. So we built in a couple of quick shortcuts to get rid of it or bring back those 2 toolbars really quickly.
That's also really handy.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the 3 main windows, but there's 2 other things that I really want to chat about really quickly in this video as part of the user interface, and those are the icons. We've got the icons and we've got the pull down menus, and we'll start with the icons first. When you have a measures graph up like we do, and these icons change depending on what you have open on your screen, but this is kind of the main home base for most people when they're analyzing data. So we've got a set of icons over here in the upper left-hand corner that are, and we call that the primary icon toolbar. The primary icon toolbar is basically made up of different functions, of ways, of different tools that you can bring up in order to analyze your data. And and just some of the ones we can just look at really quickly. There's a GPS map of exactly where you drove. I'm going to turn these on and close them back up really quickly, but that's a GPS map. We can bring up a histogram and show us, break down the lap by bins of speed or RPM, or depending on which channel we have turned on. So I'm going to turn that one off. But all of these are just different icons and different ways of looking at the data that you have active on your screen. So the primary icon toolbar is different functions. We can get to virtually all of those same exact functions just by coming from the View pull-down menu. We'll talk more about that menu in just a moment, but that's the primary icon toolbar. That brings up more tools for you to do work with to analyze your data. The next one is the secondary icon toolbar, is what I call it, over here on the left. I'm sorry, in the upper right hand corner. That toolbar basically manipulates the data that you have in the window that you have open. So the one on the left, the upper left, is the different functions. The one in the upper right manipulates that data. The first 5 buttons in this example are zoom tools. We can zoom in and out in different ways. The next one changes from time to distance across the x-axis across the bottom. Right now we're in distance across the bottom in feet, since the start finish line back to the start finish line, and we can put to time. The next one is the snap function. We'll talk about that one in more detail in another video, but that one allows us to move our viewing area about your data anywhere you want to. The next one turns on a track map. We can just simply bring up a calculated track map, resize that, put it wherever you want to, and wherever we click, the cursor and the little X goes back and forth, so you know where you're at in the data. A real important piece. So we'll close that down. But that, they just turn the track map on and off. I call that icon, because sometimes my memory is not so great, but I call that the dirty sock icon. So when you see that dirty sock, you can turn off and on your track map.
That always reminds me of Monza for some reason. I always think of Monza when I look at it.
Same look and feel, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is not very far from A Italy. So and the next icon is one that you'll end up using quite a bit when you get going, is what we call the delta function. And it's simply you turn that on, and you can click in 2 different spots, and you can measure the amount in this particular instance of mile per hour gain there between on that second little short straightaway. So if I just turn that on, I can click right here at the bottom. I can click right here at the top of that straightaway, that acceleration zone, and it shows this that there was a 16.8 miles per hour gain. It's the second number in that in our time tag. Channel tag, and you can see that it's 16.8 mile per hour gain on that little straightaway. So that's a delta. That's what we call the delta tool, and that's just a measure tool. It's this little red triangle. We'll talk more about that in detail in some upcoming videos as well. And then the most important of these set of secondary icon toolbars over here are these view buttons. We will absolutely talk about detail those, because everybody needs to know what those are. They can make your life so much easier. One of the 5 or 6 things you must know about using RayStudio 2 analysis software. It's one of our next very early videos we're going to do. Those are views that just show the data in different ways. I'm going to turn on, just to give you a quick example of what they do, I'm going to turn on 3 different channels. I've got speed, RPM, and exhaust temp. Right now, I have them in this one with the 3 little lines, which every channel gets its own part of the window. If I click on this very first one, which is the overlapped view, show graphs overlapped, every channel goes into the main window, and they each have their own scaling bar here on the side, and it gets very very busy to see, and so that everything fits into the main window from its scaling point from top to bottom. The middle one, which is the mixed view, everything gets a spot in the window of 6 different ones, and these little numbers that show up here over on the left hand side are defining where you put them. So speed is in window number 1, and exhaust temp is up there, but RPM is all the way down here in the 5th window. So I'm going to click on that one and put RPM in the 2nd window, with speed and exhaust gas temperature here in the second one. It's just a user defined way of moving things around on the screen to make it easier for you to see.
Mm.
So those are the views. And then of course the third one where I suggest everybody kind of start is show graphs tiled. Everything gets its own space. You can turn on as many channels as you wish, and everything will just continue to get its own window. And it gets really busy really quickly. So, but that's those are the views. That's part of that secondary icon toolbar, and we're going to talk a lot about views in the future.
But I mean, if you want it to look really cool like an F1 sheet, you can just make them tiled and feel awesome about yourself. So,
Look at all the stuff I'm looking at,
yeah,
right? So,
exactly. Look,
exactly.
Masa, I can do it too. Like it's just one of those.
And then the last thing on this particular presentation is the pull down menus across the top, and those are just what standard Windows pull down menus look and feel to them. I mean, and you can the first one is a normal file, pull down menu. There's data where you can upload and download tests and open and import and export. The view is all the different functions. Map, generate some track maps, build them, show them, whatever. Some of these icons we've already kind of clicked on. Some of them do the same things, but you can modify, your data in different ways. Options. Here's those graphs and ways to tile, ways to zoom. We've already seen some of those other icons. GPS, how to turn on and turn off the GPS. Ray Studio takes us right back into the configuration side. Windows, we can tile and move some things around and use some of the Windows functionality. And then there's going to the AIM website, you can get there as well, and a little bit about the program as well. So that's the main makeup of the Ray Studio 2 analysis. There's one last thing that I would go before we end here, and you can resize all of these windows, not just undock them, move them around, do what you wish, but if you take your mouse and say your speed is kind of your boss channel, like you mentioned a little bit ago, Devin, that speed is really where I want to go. You can hover on in between these two, and I can just bring this down and still want my RPM maybe active and showing, but we can make speed be the boss of the screen.
Oh, nice.
And so you can kind of move stuff around that way. You can also grab the sides here when you hover over that bar along the edge, turns to a double-headed arrow. Then we can actually move that back and forth and make sure we're using up as much of the screen as we need to, and get that just right. Or the other thing we can do is make this one a little bit bigger. Sometimes I walk up and I see people have that screen, that bottom test labs toolbar very large, and it's taking up some space. And they hide it because of that. Well, you can just grab that and make it fairly small and still do everything you're after and not take up too much screen space. So those are the basic 5 things that I like to as far as the user interface and what's available to you.
Mm-hmm. And I think probably one thing I would suggest too is just, and this is what I did when I first met you, is, just open up some random data and mess around with all the functions and just get comfortable with moving the windows and moving the tabs and just getting familiar with the tool. Like it seems silly at first, but to be honest, it made life so much easier when just I could sit down and just start using the thing rather than just being like, I don't know how to organize this, or I was unsure if I could adjust what I needed to adjust.
Absolutely. When people first get the software start working with their data, they're a little bit scared of it, and what I always try to tell people is there are backup files that are in there. We can help you get your stuff back if something gets screwed up, but I have yet to see anybody get anything screwed up. So
Yeah.
so just get in there, and if you ever get lost and completely totally out of whack, just kind of close things down and reopen back up, or close that test, open up another test, do something like that. The best way is to get in there, just start hammering around and get yourself comfortable. We try to make it as intuitive as possible, yet super powerful as it can be, but yet with some of that power comes some complexity. So just get in there and just start knocking some stuff around, and you'll learn it fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But these videos obviously are going to help us get over some of that as well. So I
Yeah.
appreciate what you doing, what you're doing.
Oh, no problem. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, we kind of talked about this before we started recording, is, also working to keep it simple for a lot of stuff. And that's actually not like a demeaning term. It's actually the way to get the most impact out of the data you're looking at. Sometimes it's, I'll look at just one speed trace and just look at some line and go, oh, that's right, I was slowing down there. Okay. And I know that sounds really simple, just the line is going down, but I'm like, whew,
Yep.
okay, I got through that part of it. Oh, goodness. Right. And then once I'm able to kind of, compare 2 laps together, you actually get a lot of like intuitive analysis out of that, where you go, wow, like I was slowing down, at the 100-foot part here, and here I'm slowing down at the, 200-foot point. Why was that? Oh, you know why? I remember it was wet out and I hit the brakes early, or I remember because I was scared. It was my first time with all that power. Right? Like, It was something silly like that. So, it helps you kind of intuit a few more things so that when you start to understand the why, you get a little closer, right? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you're out there in your race car, vehicle, cart, whatever it happens to be, you're very busy. And while it may seem like it's kind of silly that well, how did you know you didn't slow down? Well, you're very busy, especially under braking area. That's one of the things I always tell folks is
Yeah.
that's the busiest the driver is really under braking or the transition from braking through the corner. But so the data becomes a very helpful tool in
No.
understanding exactly what happened and then where and why.
Well, I've also used it just to justify when I wasn't crazy. It's one of those ones where I was just like, look, no, I did brake around the same point every time. See, I told you, I'm not crazy, you're crazy. And then
Until that time when you flew off and hit the tires.
Oh, totally.
I did
Yep.
brake at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or either that or, my guys will use it in the inverse, right? Where I will swear to you that I was braking at the same point every time, and then they'll pull up the data and be like, yeah, Davin, whatever. Sure. Go back and try that again. Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's have a talk. Come over here and have a seat.
We're gonna put a cone on the track, and you're gonna brake at that cone because you don't know how to tell the truth. Oh, okay, great, awesome.
Yeah. You're right. No.
You're right, exactly. Shuffle my way back to my desk. Okay, sorry guys. Yeah, totally. So that's our first AIM Learn Fast video. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you have any questions about something we covered, or you have a question about how something else works, that way we can make more content that is more relevant for you guys, that works best. We're looking forward to making a lot of these. Hopefully there'll be varying lengths so you can take some and play them as podcasts or do other things with them. But whatever you guys think would be useful, just let us know in the comments and we'll come up with something creative. We really want you guys to really have fun with data and use it the best you can. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys soon. Bye.